Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Professor Bebbington. Thank you, Professor Kirkpatrick, for your introductions. It's a real delight for me to be here today presenting at this first showcase of learning and teaching. I'm particularly pleased to be able to take this opportunity to showcase some of the work that we're doing in the Bachelor of Media program at the moment. Just to give a little bit of context, the Bachelor of Media program has been taught since about 2002 here at the University of Adelaide, and annually we're enrolling currently around about 250 students who come to do a shared curriculum, but at the same time also have opportunities to major in a whole series of different areas that are related to different parts of the media industry. Professional practice, which is the specific example that I'm going to focus on today, is a compulsory course which is taught to all of our students in the program and is intended to be a capstone course for the degree program. It's intended to be the exit program that all students do, ideally as close to the completion of their degree as they possibly can, because we want to use this course to try and set them up for life after university. I would also like to add that in 2012 I co-coordinated the course with my colleague Dr. Ying Zhang, and I'd like to acknowledge the contribution that she made to and continues to make to the professional practice course, and also acknowledge that professional practice takes its place as one amongst a whole series of courses that are focused on employability of our media graduates, and the most important one of these is obviously our internship course, Media Industry Placement, which is coordinated by my colleague Associate Professor Mary Griffiths. Now, the problem in general for us, as with many arts programs, is that graduates, students and graduates may not immediately see the vocational potential of what they're studying. This is a general problem which has been noted by almost everybody who teaches in arts, humanities and social science programs, and it's well documented through research, not the least of which is research by our own Executive Dean, Professor Nick Harvey here at the University of Adelaide. Having said that though, the kinds of skills, the knowledge and the capabilities that arts graduates have are clearly valued by employers, and it's interesting to see that research also indicates that once graduates leave university and find their feet 2 or 3 years into their careers, very quickly the kinds of things that they learned at university, the kinds of skills and capabilities they have start to come to the fore, and arts graduates are very often valued for precisely the things that they've learned. Those skills of creativity, imagination, applied knowledge, those things are really seen as valuable, but they may not be seen as valuable at that all-important moment of graduation when students leave the university and are trying to get established in employment. The specific problem for us in media is that our exit course, professional practice, manifestly was not working. When we looked at the result scores for 2011 for this course, clearly there was a fairly high level of dissatisfaction with the course. And in particular, I was certainly concerned by some of the comments of students that seemed to indicate that what we envisaged as a third-year course that was a capstone preparing students for graduation was seen and perceived in a very different way by our students. So myself and Dr. Zhang, we set ourselves the task in consultation with other members of the discipline to try and think about ways in which we could try and turn this problem around and actually turn professional practice into what it was intended to be. So the solution in general, we are obviously building on a fairly rich tradition within the discipline of work-integrated learning. And we wanted to find ways in which we could build on the great work that had already been done in the discipline in this area. But one of the things that we had to recognise, of course, is that using an internship model, which is incredibly valuable within the degree program as a whole, the internship model has a series of problems. Not least of which is that it can be fairly costly to implement an individual bespoke internship for every single student. And whilst we've been fantastically successful in doing that for the great majority of our students, there's no way that we could really guarantee that 100% of our students would have that kind of internship experience. So the solution was to flip the internship. The solution was to find ways in which we could ask organisations to come to us. Rather than us sending students out into the workplace to do an internship, rather we would flip the internship and ask organisations if they would kindly come to us and work with our students within the professional practice course to give students the kind of experience that would really get them set up for employability once they graduated. So what we did is we invited 4 organisations initially in 2012 to identify for us a media-specific problem that they were currently concerned with at that point in time. The important thing here is that they were real world problems. Okay, so we didn't want to invent a problem for the organisations, but we actually went to those organisations and said, what is it that you are currently struggling with? Okay, what we then asked those organisations to do was to prepare a short briefing, a short project briefing for our students, come to an initial lecture within the course and explain the problem to students and allow students an opportunity to ask questions of them and receive answers. And then throughout the rest of the semester, myself and Dr. Jang and the other tutors on the course worked with students to develop solutions, to come up with a report that ultimately we could pass on to the organisations themselves, so the organisations would get some kind of feedback and a return on their investment in our students' futures in the form of those project reports. And they would also have an opportunity to come back at the end of the semester and to provide feedback to our students, to give students advice on what they thought was particularly valuable and useful that they'd learnt from the reports, but at the same time give it a clear indication to students about areas where they felt they maybe needed to seek some improvements in the future. The organisations involved last year, we quite deliberately selected organisations that did not necessarily appear to have a media industry focus. This was done quite deliberately because one of the things we were concerned about was the way in which students in a named degree like the media degree might perceive their skills and their knowledge and their capabilities as only of limited use in some organisations and some areas of work, but not others. So we wanted to expand our students' thinking about where they might be able to use their skills in the future. So we worked with organisations like the Botanic Gardens here in Adelaide. We also looked internally. The university itself is an amazing resource when it comes to this kind of work-integrated learning. So we invited the student motorsports team to come and present a problem. We also asked the eScience magazine team in the Faculty of Sciences, and we also invited Radio Adelaide to come and talk to our students. So we had 4 fantastic organisations. They were incredibly generous of their time, and they gave our students an opportunity to think about and work on small group discovery projects that were all about problem solving, all about trying to come up with solutions to the problems those organisations had. In terms of assessment, the first thing we did with students was ask them to create an e-portfolio that showcased what they were capable of doing. That was very important because we wanted students to get into an active dialogue with each other at the outset of the course when it came to group formation. We wanted students to both recognise their own individual skills but also understand how they had to create groups that would actually work effectively together on these projects. They then worked together to develop a group project. This involved a series of formative presentations, work-in-progress presentations to other members of the class, and also, as I said, a written report that was then fed back onto the organisations. Finally, things ended with an individual assessment where students selected an individual point from within their group project to receive more detailed examination, and this also gave them an opportunity to reflect on some of those other generic skills that they were learning within the project. We taught through a combination of e-learning. I mentioned the e-portfolio. We also used My Uni very actively to facilitate these group projects and group communication. Small group discovery was very important. Tutorials were primarily spaces for problem solving and group work. Tutors primarily acting as facilitators. This was emphatically a course that was contained content, contained new things that students were encountering, but it was emphatically not a content-driven course. It was all about students actually thinking about ways that they could apply learning and content from other courses into the solving of a particular problem. The results in 2012, we saw a 33% increase when it came to students' assessment of overall quality. And what I was particularly pleased by was some of the feedback. The written comments really underscored that this was an approach that was beginning to do what we always wanted professional practice to do. I particularly like the first few comments there. Everything I learned in the media degree pulled together in this course. All the knowledge I gained can now be put into play. Those were exactly the kind of comments that we were seeking, and this was an affirmation that we may have actually hit on the solution to the particular problem that we had in professional practice. We don't want to rest on our laurels. We know the course can improve in the future. Careful choice of organisations is always going to be central to a flipped internship, I think. We also know that students continue to struggle with group work sometimes, so we seek ways in which we can maybe create more manageable groups and look to scaffold the work that students are doing in those group projects so they feel really supported in their work. We will continue to refine topics, we will continue to refine assessment, and maybe in the not too distant future, if not in 2012, if not in 2013, maybe in 2014, we'll look for ways that we can actually flip the lectures as well. If you're thinking about pursuing this kind of approach to a capstone course, there are a number of things that I think are worthwhile considering. I won't be able to go through all of them now in this short presentation, but hopefully these slides will be available, and I would be very happy to talk to anyone else who would like to follow up on some of these points. But clearly this is not something that you can undertake lightly. But I think, just to highlight the point in the middle there, I think this is an approach which would be readily adaptable to almost any area. We know that, of course, in other faculties, this kind of flipped internship experience may sound very familiar, but certainly in a faculty like Humanities and Social Sciences, I think this is an approach that could be easily adapted to many other areas. And in actual fact, the process of adaptation itself may be extremely useful in initiating further thought and thinking about curricula and thinking about the ways in which we can actually bring issues of employability to the fore in our teaching. So in conclusion, I'd like to just say that we do have a responsibility, of course, to prepare students for day one of their employment, but I think it's also very important for us in the arts, humanities and social sciences not to lose sight of the fact that we do offer something of incredible value. One of the things that I've been delighted to discover from talking to employers is that many of the things that we value, they value as well. They do value imagination, they value creativity, they value problem solving, they value many of the areas of skill and knowledge that we provide to students. So one of the things that we have to do is make sure that our students recognise that themselves. If our students don't recognise it, and if we don't do a job to help students recognise that they have these valued skills, then it should not be surprising to us that they sometimes struggle and are also a little bit critical of their education when it comes to their thoughts on employment. So we have a job to do here to actually help students understand how our education does work to improve their employability. There's a lovely quote there that I received in an email from a student, which hopefully you can read on the slide up there. But that kind of comment really does give all of us in the discipline of media a lot of hope for the future and a great deal of courage when it comes to thinking about what we're doing in the program. And I'd just like to end with an acknowledgement not just of the students and the organisations that we worked with last year, but I'd also like to acknowledge that this is a presentation that I'm very much giving on behalf of all of us in the discipline. I'd just like to acknowledge all of my colleagues in the discipline and their continued contribution to making this a great degree programme. Thank you.